invited guest. Just so everybody knows, they not pay for any of this. This is all for myself because I just feel very strongly that we have to get certain information out to the public that is not getting out. So, thank you. So, our special guest this evening is Colonel Stephen Robson. He is the Executive Director of Law Enforcement at BSO, and the bio on the BSO website is so impressive that I'm going to quickly read most of it for you. So, Colonel Stephen Robson began his law enforcement career with BSO in 1997 and has served in a variety of assignments, including road patrol, narcotics, major investigations, support services, special ops, and instructing. Prior to serving as the Executive Director Colonel of the Department of Law Enforcement and the Department of Preparedness and Response, Colonel Robson was the Major and Executive Director of Training and Organizational Development at BSO. In this position, he was responsible for providing training to all the diverse facets of BSO and developing the best abilities for our BSO personnel to perform their duties. Prior to serving as the Major, the Colonel was the captain of the Special Ops Group and was the SWAT commander. There he was responsible for all tactical operations for all high-risk incidents requiring a SWAT team response. In 2020, he was promoted to the rank of Colonel. He earned his bachelor's degree in public administration from Barry University in Miami. He is a certified firearms instructor, certified SWAT operator, and certified high liability instructor. The Colonel is an active member of the Concerns of Police Survivors and the National Tactical Officers Association. In August of 22, the Colonel received his Master's in Public Administration from Lynn University. So that, as I said, a very impressive resume, and you'll be hearing very shortly from Colonel Robson. I have just a small part this evening, making sure everything goes smoothly and giving you a little bit of background. But I really wanted Colonel Robson to be the star of the show tonight so you could hear straight from the horse's mouth some of the things that are not getting out into the public. So you all have that outline in front of you, and we're going to try to stick to it. And of course, you'll see we're leaving a lot of time at the end for questions, because I think that's probably also one of the most important parts of this evening. But I did want to start out by giving a brief timeline of what has happened to get us to this point, and I think that will kind of help to lead in to what the Colonel is going to tell you. So, as private citizens, we are at the mercy of our elected officials to find out what's going on. And the first sign that we received that something wasn't going quite right was on June 28th, when the Sun Sentinel came out with an editorial telling Deerfield Beach to hold the line against BSO and Sheriff Tony and not give in to the contract, the changes in the contract that BSO was asking for. And that same day, we had our first elected official, the District 1 Commissioner Michael Hudak. He put out also a Facebook post about what was going on, and that was the first that the public heard that there was a cancellation letter received by the city from BSO. Now, we have to go back a little bit first. It was in April of this year where the first official meeting occurred between the city manager, Rodney Brimlow, and BSO officials. And at that meeting, a pay study was presented to the city by a company called Evergreen Solutions. And if that name rings a bell, it's because Evergreen Solutions is the same company that the city of Deerfield Beach used a couple years ago when they did their own pay study to justify salary increases and regrading for the 400 some odd employees of the city. That study had been brought up as early as the fall of 2023 by BSO to David Santucci, the old city manager of Deerfield Beach. So it had been disclosed that they were performing this study and it was coming down the pike. So obviously we don't know if Santucci went to Rodney Brimlow at the time, who was the director of public safety of Deerfield Beach, to tell them about it, but it shouldn't have come as a surprise when BSO mentioned at that April meeting that they had, here are the results of the study, and I'll let the Colonel go into detail about that study. And as a matter of fact, and then also from that April 14th meeting until July 16th, I'm going to let the Colonel talk more about that time frame, because that's very, very crucial to understand what's going on. But we'll fast forward now to August 5th, and there was a commission meeting where this was after BSO had met with Rodney Brimlow and the city's attorney, Anthony Soroka, on July 16th. And at that meeting, BSO had laid out a bunch of scenarios to save the city a considerable amount of money and get it below the 5% cap that was that the city, that was in the letter from BSO to the city, that the commission, all of the things and all of the scenarios that had been talked about that night. And then that led to the, what you maybe have seen on social media, that led to Sheriff Tony having the meeting with his Deerfield Beach staff on Thursday, August 7th. And that's when he was not happy with Rodney Brimlow not disclosing to the commission everything that had been talked about at that July 16th meeting. So the next day, Rodney Brimlow filed a complaint with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Good evening, everybody. Again, I'm Colonel Steve Robson from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. I am the Executive Director of Law Enforcement. I cut my teeth in Deerfield Beach. Let me start with this. My first 5 years as a law enforcement officer was right here in Deerfield Beach. So this is my hometown police department. This is what I grew to know and expanded my career based on everything I gained coming out of this city. So it's important to me that this relationship works. This relationship continues to work. And I want to thank Dan for giving us the opportunity to come here tonight. I want to thank you for coming here tonight to hear what we have to say. And I'm going to say this: I'm not here to lay any indictments on anybody in the city. I'm not here to bash anything. I'm here to provide clarity. I'm here to provide facts, and I'm here to answer your questions. More importantly, I'm here to give assurances that BSO is committed to Deerfield Beach. BSO wants to continue this relationship with Deerfield Beach. And there's no reason why this situation cannot amicably be resolved, and we can continue this 35-year partnership that we've had with the city of Deerfield Beach. There's no reason why we can't do this. So I want to get into some facts. Dan gave a great overview of what's transpired thus far, and there's some key components that I want to make sure as clarity is given. And like Dan said, this salary study started because BSO has a retention issue, both on the fire and the police side. So when I speak a lot tonight, yes, I'm wearing a police uniform, but I assure you, I represent the Sheriff's Office, and I represent my fire brothers and sisters as much as I represent law enforcement standing here. And we have a retention issue. We have a recruitment issue. Salary-wise, BSO, we're getting our butts kicked because we're just not paying our people competitively against other agencies in the same field in public safety in the immediate area. And I have some facts, and I'm gonna pull them out for you. So what did we do? We did the same thing Deerfield Beach did. We hired Evergreen Solutions to come in and assess everything in our agency from top to bottom, whether it was corrections, communications, law enforcement, fire rescue, civilian support staff, administrative staff, everything that makes that machine, that big green machine, go round and round. And they gave us factors of where we need to be and where are we in comparison to everybody else around us. And I was shocked how far behind we were. And just so we take this study, And we did tell all of our contractual partners when we started this study, just to let you know, we're gonna do the salary study. We don't know the outcome, but we're just letting you know we're gonna do it in good partnership and good stewardship. And I understand it. I have my master's degree and my undergrad is in public administration. I understand government management. I understand the importance of being able to forecast budgets, especially when you have public safety entity that chews up 50% of your ad valorem taxes. I understand it. I understand both sides. So it was important for us to communicate that, and we did. Again, now whether the old city manager communicated that to Rodney Brimlow when he was the public safety director, I can't answer that. I don't know. But we did our diligence and we made sure that information was given to the city. So fast forward, in April, we invited all of our city partners to come to the BSO and sit down, and we reviewed to respect it to their city and their contracts, the results of the Evergreen solutions. And what was that result going to be? And what was that impact going to be to the respective city? And Deerfield was no different. We met with Rodney Brimlow and his staff. And we went over the salary study, and we told them what the numbers were gonna be. So the first point of clarity I wanna provide is, one of the things that I've heard over and over is this contract of open ceiling, a blank check. BSO has asked us for a blank check for 2 years. That's not accurate. Because in the salary study, we told them exactly what that first year was gonna be. And so everybody understands contracts and how are we here. I'm not sure who's who in the room, so I'm gonna break some things down to make it so everybody understands. When we provide a contract service, every year we provide what's the consideration budget. And that is a forecast, that's the budget we tell the cities and all of our contractual partners what it's gonna take to provide the services you contracted with BSO for the upcoming year. And those letters go out in May. And those letters are based on a snapshot of what the personnel staffing is in that respective city, regardless of the discipline, in February. So we look at February, we say, okay, who's actually in the city, who's assigned there, and where are they in seniority and the pay, and it breaks out what's the costs are gonna be to facilitate those operations to include the personnel costs for that upcoming year. That's the consideration budget. Those numbers were given to the city of Deerfield Beach in the salary study for year one of what the impact was gonna be for the increase of personnel costs as it related to the salary study. The following month in May, the consideration letter went out, the budget went out to the city. Yes, it was over the 5% cap. Everybody understands that. There's a 5% cap for salaries. It's in the contract, it's been there all along, but we had to catch up. And we explained why we had to catch up, and I think the city has acknowledged, actually I know the city's acknowledged the validity of the salary study and the need and the deserving of the pay, but the city has a contract. And the city says, we have a contract and we want you to abide by the contract. Okay, as the executive director, I respect that, I hear you. So they rejected the consideration budget despite us forecasting the numbers for them, and it was 10% for fire, and it was an 11% for fire rescue. So but with a 5% overage, so you gotta take 5% off of that. So it was 5% over for fire, or for law enforcement, and 6% over for fire rescue. But you have to go a little bit further. So if we're gonna stand on the staunches of we have a contract, the contract was for 6 months. So really contractually, the difference was even smaller, it was half of that. So really it was 2.5% and 3% overage by the terms of the contract. But in good faith, I didn't want to do that because I understand city management and I understand city government. So when we prepared our budgets for the whole year, whether there was a contract or not, because I, in good faith, thought we were gonna renew this contract and we're gonna go forward. So your budget, I understand you have to establish a budget for the whole year. And we did that. So we gave them the budget for the whole year, which was that alluded to that overage, okay? So with the rejection letter, so we sent the consideration letter and the city manager rejected that because it was outside the bounds of his contract. Yes, it was. I acknowledge that. So what did we do? Obviously we have a problem and we need to work this out. So for 3 weeks, the sheriff's office tried to communicate with the city of Deerfield Beach. For 3 weeks, our calls went unanswered. Not a callback, for 3 weeks. After we got his rejection letter. What am I supposed to do? So the problem is, I have to pay everybody the same. Whether you're assigned to Deerfield Beach, whether you're assigned to Hallandale Beach, Weston, any of our contractual partners on either side of the discipline, we have to pay everybody the same. So unfortunately, BSO had no choice. And we had to send a letter, because in our contract, both sides, there's an exit clause in the contract, and it says we have to give a written notice, 90 days of intent to cancel the contract. So 3 weeks go by, and we didn't get a response from the city. So BSO had to send a letter. And the intent and the spirit of the letter was to stimulate communication. It was not the intent we wanted to cancel the contract, but we also had to poise ourselves in a position where come October 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year, we could move forward with our raises. And if Deerfield Beach wasn't gonna be on board with that, we were gonna have to move forward for the sake of everybody else in our organization. We have 6,000 employees. Everybody else was tied to that. And we could not let Deerfield Beach hold on because it was 6 months left of their contract. And again, I respect that. So I'm trying to come up with solutions to resolve this issue. So the first time we heard back from the city was when they received a letter for cancellation. And I understand that's a sticker shock, and I get it. But the intent and the spirit was to stimulate conversation, to come to the table and let's work this out. We've had a 35-year relationship. And in terms, what was this? We all understand contracts. This was a change order to a contract that had been in place for continuing resolution of continuing contracts for 35 years. So the last 6 months of this contract, we were asking for a change order that essentially was a 2.5% and a 3% change order at its core. That's what we needed to get this done. And they wouldn't budge. And they're in the ground. Now I can tell you plenty of, again, I'm not here to indict anybody, but I know there's plenty of projects that have happened around this city where a change order in a contract is regular business. It happens all the time. BSO has never come to the city asking for a change order on our contracts for raises. We've never done it, but it needed to happen. And I'm gonna pull out the document, and I want to share with you where we were in relation to our partner and public safety agencies around us. I'm gonna speak for law enforcement. The starting salary for BSO deputy today is $64,448. That's where we're at. In comparison, Coconut Creek, right next door, they just passed a new contract. They're starting at $75,217. That's Coconut Creek. Coral Springs is at 73, almost 74,000. Fort Lauderdale is at $79,357. Hollywood, 68,000, almost 69,000. Water Hill, 72,000. Pembroke Pines, 71,000. Plantation, 78,000. Sunrise, 76,000. Wilton Manors is at almost 69,000. I hear a lot of noise about Boca Raton. Boca Raton's at 91,000. Yeah. To start, this is walking in the door. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, 74,000 in county. They keep kicking our butt. Again, BSO, we're at 64,448. And fire's parallel on their side in comparison to the agencies they compare against. Do you understand we have a problem? I don't fault the employees of BSO, especially when they're new in the door, they're raising families, it's expensive here, inflation's bad, housing market. We understand it. I'm gonna go someplace else, I can make more money to feed my family, raise my kids. I'm gonna go where they're gonna pay me more money. But unfortunately, there's an impact to that, and it's a public safety impact to our agency, whether, again, regardless of your discipline, whether it's corrections, law enforcement, fire rescue, communications, it doesn't matter. We're having a recruitment issue. Imagine trying to recruit against those numbers. How do I sell my agency to get people in the door? How do I hold on to people once I've invested that money in training them? And training them in the cities like Deerfield Beach. You look at vacancies in Deerfield Beach, vacancies this year in Deerfield Beach compared to the year before. It's almost double because I have to share those vacancies by percentage across the population of our personnel across all of our contracts. So Deerfield Beach vacancies are double this year than they were last year. So I just wanted to paint that picture. So this is where we were. We have a problem. All this information was shared with all of our city partners. All of our city partners, to include Deerfield, said we understand and we agree. You're underpaid, we have to give the raises. But we have this contract. Okay. So what did I do? I came up with other options and came back to the city to try to propose these options to close that gap the best I could. And I admit, fire rescue is very hard. I think you've heard these arguments with the city. It's very hard to cut staff from fire rescue because they don't have a lot of extra staff. They have exactly what they need to facilitate the mission. And nobody wants to pull anybody off a truck. Nobody wants to pull that third paramedic out of that rescue truck. Because I can tell you, if somebody's driving and I got one person working on my family member, I'd rather have two. If it's my emergency, if I'm in the back of the truck, I'd rather have two trained professionals working on me, not one. How do you put a price on that? I'm asking you, how do you put a price on that? You can't. So there's not a whole lot of cutting to do there. So what do? I looked internally, I looked at the law enforcement mission. And I want to explain this too. I'm a contract provider at the end of the day. I'm a public safety professional. I'm the director of law enforcement. We provide police and fire services. But we are, in this situation, we are a contract provider for the city of Deerfield Beach. Deerfield Beach is the customer. Deerfield Beach has to give me the scope of work of what do you want from me as a contract provider? What staffing do you want me to provide you? It's not really my purview to tell the city what staffing you want, what specialized units do you want, what special missions do you want for your city. It has to be palatable to the city manager and the city electeds. What do you want? I'll provide it for you. But it's fixed pricing. You're not buying a car. I can't negotiate the price up and down and take a loss on this car and make it up with somebody else. That's not how it works. We're a government entity. We have contracts with everybody. Everybody pays the same. So what do you want? But that's not what we got. I offered several options for them. 3 options, as a matter of fact. One of them was to figure out, let's just get to the end of the contract, and I'll get you as close as I can to your 5% cap, and you'll be happy, because that's what this is about. It's about the premise of a contract. Every option I gave the city was rejected because it didn't meet it. Well, the 3rd option I gave them actually did meet it, but it did include cutting some staffing, ancillary positions that the city could afford. And I reassured them that these missions that I'm looking to kick a couple of positions from to meet your 5% has no impact to public safety, no impact to calls for service, no impact for investigations, no impact for proactive operations, and no impact to any revenue driving missions within the city for police services. There are support positions that could be afforded to be frozen or eliminated to meet your cap. If that's the problem, we can do this. And that proposal was rejected. Didn't want to hear it. Wasn't even presented to the city. So I gave those options to every elected myself, because I thought that was the responsible thing to do. And maybe you saw me, maybe you didn't, and I spoke to the city commission. And I gave them all the options. And what I told them was, I've given you 3 options. At the table right now, with the 3rd option that I've given you, we are at less than 1% away from this cap issue. We were like 0.9%. And that was the aggregate for the whole year. Like I said, I wasn't trying to give them a budget for 6 months. It was for the whole year. And what I asked them was, please review what I've given you and get back to me. Give me feedback if you don't like what I've given you. Let's work this out. BSO is at the table. We want to figure this out. BSO did not get a response. So now here I am. I'm back in square one again. We're still over the cap. The clock's ticking because we gave them a 90-day notice because we had to. We didn't want to do it, but we had to for the sake of everybody else in my organization. The mission had to go forward. These raises were needed. So unfortunately, this is where we're at. I sat and I met with the city manager, the city attorney, the public safety director, and my team, and we proffered these options to them. And unfortunately, in the end, they weren't good enough. But they call it a negotiation. It's not really a negotiation. Has to be 2-sided, and that's what I'd really like to see from the tell me what you want. I'll provide it for you. And that's where we're at. So I can't be any more clear than that. Again, I'm not trying to indict anybody. I'm not here to speak ill will of anybody. I'm here to provide clarity of what happened. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to assure you and the public that BSO is invested in Deerfield Beach. We want to continue this relationship. This is absolutely fixable. If the city decides on its own to go back to its own fire and police in-house, that's their purview to do that. Absolutely, that's your purview. Your elected officials, your public has entrusted you and elected you to positions of power. You've hired a city manager and a public safety director to guide your public safety needs in the direction they feel it needs to go. But those are big decisions, and those decisions have consequences. And if the reality is, I've given you these numbers. If it's a money issue, what are you paying? You're gonna have to pay the same that BSO's telling you, the salary study, we've given you the answers to the test. That's what it's gonna cost you. But I have a recruiting issue. All of these agencies I mentioned still have recruiting issues. They're offering signing bonuses, they're doing what they can to get their people in the door. I don't see it being a salary savings or a savings for the city. And that's just salaries. Let's talk about the recruiting. Let's talk about the infrastructure here in the city. Let's talk about the capital outlay that it would cost. And again, they're gonna do their feasibility study, and I respect them for that. In my last meeting with the city manager, it was the day after the last commission meeting, and I have the date, I can look it up. It was the last commission meeting in September before October 1st hit. It was the last one. And the trigger was gonna hit for October 1st, and the contract was gonna cancel. And then we started to this transition period of 24 months where you go to actual costs. It's billed monthly, you get an invoice to the city. And the city supposed to start the process of building their own departments. That's where we're at now. We're in month 2 of that 24-month period. So I had this meeting, and we brought these options back to the table again to try to discuss them. But the night before, that last commission meeting, the city passed the budget, and the budget they passed was the full consideration value for fire and police services to make sure there was enough money to account for the raises. And that was the whole issue for BSO, and it was at full staffing, what we originally asked for. They passed the budget to account for that. And I thanked that, I was there that night, and I thanked every elected official for passing that budget and believing in the men and women to make sure there was enough money to facilitate these raises. Because whether we went to actuals or not, the raises were gonna go into effect. And the city guaranteed there was gonna be money to fund those raises for the men and women serving the city. And I thanked each one of them for that, because they didn't have to do that. They could have passed a lower budget, but they didn't. And I'm thankful for that. So the next day, the very next morning, I walk into a meeting with my staff and the city staff to talk about the contract issue. And in my hand, I brought a letter from the sheriff offering to reinstate the contract for the last 6 months that was remaining because they passed the budget to account for the raises. That's what this was all about. The money was there, you passed the budget for it. All the city had to do was say yes. And the contract would have been, the cancellation letter would have been null and void, and the contract would have got reinstated for fire and police, and it would have cooled everything down until the end of March. And I told the city manager, it gives you time to complete your feasibility study. I understand as a city manager, you have a due diligence to make sure that you have the fiduciary responsibility that your fire and police services that eat up all those ad valorem taxes is the right decision for the city. I get it. I respect it. Do your feasibility study, because BSO's been there before. We've had our contract partners do feasibility studies before. Hallandale Beach, the fire department did one very recently. And hands down, they understood it was gonna be a lot more money to go back to their own department. Cooper City did one 6 years ago. The result was the same. The first year startup was a 50% increase of their budget of what they were currently paying. The following year was 10%. And it was about gonna be a 7 to 8% increase perpetually after that. They understood that. Cooper City decided to stay. Rewind the clock back. Pompano, when our Pompano contract did that years back. They did a feasibility study, and they decided it was best to stay. Pompano's doing another feasibility study right now. I've participated in that. We've been very cooperative with that, because I understand it. I understand a city's position to be responsible to their citizens, to make sure they're spending all that money properly, and they're getting the best value and service for that money. I get it. But I can stand before you and look you in the eye and tell you, BSO, whether it's fire or police, is the best option for public safety in the county. We are the best option. There's so many things that get tied that the services of Deerfield Beach get that are not in the city of Deerfield Beach. But if you go back to your own city, you will be responsible for those missions. And that is an absolute absorbent of taxes that you will continue to go above what you're currently paying. So BSO is the best option. And I'm not saying that because I'm wearing green. One day I won't be wearing green. Hopefully I'm looking like you and I'm sitting on that side. Yeah, I've done my time. And it'll hold true because I know what we bring to the table. I've served in all kinds of capacities around this agency, from road patrol to narcotics to SWAT to money laundering. And I've run countless units. I've run the training mission, and now here I am, the executive director of law enforcement, running all law enforcement services. And I see all of our contracts. I interface with all the city managers. I interface with all the electeds of all of our contract partners. I see the other cities. I'm a member of the Broward Chiefs of Police Association. I have friends all over the county. Hands down, BSO is the most professional agency, whether it's fire or police. We're the most professional, we're the most equipped, we're the ones with the most resources. If you look at what happened in the city a couple of weeks ago, who was the first there to help out with the flood that was happening? Who was there? It was BSO. And did all those resources come directly from the city? No, they did not. They came from other districts, they came from other cities to help out, because that's where the crisis was happening, and that's an advantage you have with the sheriff's office. You have all these resources that are what we call downtown resources that are not in the city, where you would have to employ those resources yourself in your city police department that you're currently not paying for. You have a certain allotment of detectives in the city, and those missions are specifically lower level part 1 crimes, crime suppression, things like that. But when you start talking about robbery and homicide and sex assaults and special victims unit and those types of crimes, those aren't handled here. Those are handled by BSO's regional criminal investigations division downtown. But those are all missions that are going to have to come back in-house, and that's going to drive up the cost here. And again, I have not seen the feasibility study, so I'm not going to attack something I haven't seen. I hope it's legitimate. I hope they invested their money and they have legitimate numbers. But I hope the feasibility study they bring back and they compare BSO's contract with what their feasibility study is going to be. I just hope that it's fair, and I hope it's transparent. And you are comparing apples to apples. That's what's important. Compare apples to apples. And again, you are your own elected officials, and you manage your city. And if your decision is to go back to your city with all the facts, then they're accountable to you if that was the right decision. And you guys make the decision on whether they stay in their place or not. That's how it works. That's the society we live in. That's where it's at. So I could go on. I have a whole bunch of other documentation here, but I'd like to pause for a minute, Dan, if that's okay.
Sure.
And maybe take some questions.
Yeah. We'll open up the questions in just 1 minute. That the reason they couldn't fill the slots is because at the time, the city was paying $49 an hour to try to fill these time slots with BSO officers taking those slots. And in order to fill up those slots, he explained to the CRA board that if we increase the pay to $75 an hour, then he felt that they could have 100% filling of those CRA slots. So when this was a 53% increase, and the CRA directors approved the pay increase by a 5-0 vote, no apprehension whatsoever, no negative comments, and they understood that giving BSO officers, in this case, the 53% pay increase was deserved. So I feel that it's important that you know that. And then one other thing that really just came to my attention literally 2 days ago is that the same company that Deerfield Beach just hired and approved to do this study for $72,500 is a company called the Center for Public Safety, that they did a report that I certainly wasn't aware of, and I don't know anybody in the public was aware, that they had done a study that was completed in July of 2024 for, at the time, Director of Public Safety Rodney Brimlow. And this Center for Public Safety was pleased to submit this comprehensive staffing analysis for Deerfield Beach Police, Code Compliance, Fire Rescue, Ocean Rescue, and Park Ranger Department. And this study was conducted to assess the current and future personnel needs of these critical departments and provide data-driven recommendations for optimizing staffing levels and resources. Now, the point is here, obviously, something was in the works a while ago, and you can draw your own conclusions. I'm just giving you the facts, and you can make your own conclusions. So with those 2 points, I definitely wanted to mention, and now I'm going to take the handheld mic, and we'll go around, and there's no question that's off limits. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Hold on, let me turn this on. No, you better speak first, because you know if Charles starts, you'll never get a turn.
Okay, I just want, I want to be sure I got this. You said that the city did plan to put the increase, a salary increase for BSO in the budget, right? I just want to be sure you.
They did, and the city decided to go ahead and set a budget that accounted for the raises.
Yeah.
Based on the consideration letter that BSO sent that was rejected by the city manager.
Oh.
The reason for that was when October 1st hit, because it went to actuals, those raises were gonna be implemented because we'd no longer be in contract, so BSO can then implement those raises upon the city. That was why, so they had to make sure they had a budget that accounted for that. Now, I give them credit because I gave them options that were less money. They could have froze positions that were vacant, or they could have taken another option, and they could have cut a couple of positions and passed a lower budget, but they didn't. They passed the full budget to account for all the raises at the current staffing levels. Did I answer your question?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Well, I did have a comment here. Why is it Hudak here tonight? Is there a reason for that?
Well, here, I'll answer that one. I don't want to put her on the spot. Tonight, there is a economic forum, State of the City address that is being held the same night, and unfortunately, there was a conflict. I picked this date first, and then they came after me, so obviously he couldn't be in 2 places at one time. So I had to. Go ahead, Sandra.
Hi, I just have a question. What you just was talking about, that study that they did in 2024.
Yes.
What month was that?
Well, the cover letter, the date on the cover letter is July 12, 2024. Obviously, they had to start doing that at least months in advance.
Right,
So,
because
yeah.
we was getting this new election that was coming up. So I'm just wondering, because we had the election and we're working so hard to get certain people in there to go along with this game.
Well, obviously, we can ask, when the city has their 5 meetings, we can follow up and ask.
I'm not saying that's
those
what
type of
happened, but it's
questions. Right.
just like weird.
No, I understand.
Thank you. Does BSO, can they and have any intentions of doing this in other areas of the city so that the rest of the residents can really understand what's going on?
So I was invited here tonight by Dan Hurst, and if there's another town hall around the city, I'll gladly come and explain the facts of what's occurred. I hope tonight that I've come across as being factual. Again, I'm not here to point fingers, I'm not here to muddy the waters up, I'm not here for a back and forth. I'm really here to lay the facts out, and everything I've said tonight is absolutely, is factual, is backed up by documentation. And I want the truth to be out there for people, to make an informed decision. That's what I tell the citizens, make an informed decision. The elected officials, make an informed decision. Make an informed decision, it's a big decision. And in the end, they're gonna own the decision, whether it's they go to back to their own departments, or they decide to stay with BSO. Obviously, I think the correct answer is to stay with BSO. And I also wanna add, so in this upcoming meeting, I'm gonna tell you, I'll look you in the eye and I'll tell you, I will come back to the table with my team with the contract based on what they asked me for. Again, I'm the contract provider. And I know the city said that BSO's best and final offer. Well, that's not really the case. I can't give you a final offer until you ask me well, what do you want? When you tell me what you want and what you want in that contract for staffing consideration, we've told you what the numbers are gonna be. And, you know, like year one, that year is given. I've heard a lot about, well, year two is a blank check. And that's not true either. Because in that salary study that we provided the city manager in April, we did year one, we told them what that was gonna be. And we gave what they call a floating target for year two. I can't give you a hard number for year two because I don't know who's gonna be in the city staffing wise and what those fluctuations are gonna be based on seniority and what step you're at with your salaries come year two. I don't know what that's going to be, so I have to wait. But in the contract language that I'm going to offer them, it's gonna be a number that's gonna be close, and it's stipulated that, it's gonna be a floating number. So I'm not asking for a blank check for year two. This salary study from Evergreen Solutions, it is a 2-tier implementation. There's a year one and a year two to catch us up. We didn't wanna come to our city partners in all in 1 year and go, we need 15%, I need 20%, because each city was different depending on where they were with their staffing. That was gonna be unfair. So we broke it up over 2 years to allow, again, for the city to forecast, for the city to plan, and to make sure they had enough money to fund these raises. So it's a 2-year implementation. So year two in the contract, we'll have a number that's gonna be close, so it's not a blank check. And in year 3, 4, and 5 of that contract, that 5% cap is back in place. So I'm not asking for blank checks, I'm not asking for an ungodly, there is a number that's gonna be held that's very close. The year one's already done, they have that number. Year two, again, it's a floating target, it'll be close to where that's at. It's not gonna be a big gap difference. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be 10%, I come and ask you for 20. That's not gonna be the case at all. But I'm gonna come forward with that contract. And I'm gonna come forward with the language as best I can with the healthcare, those costs. Again, we've negotiated these contracts with all of our other city partners. We've already gone through this process. So most of the legwork, and Soroka, the city attorney, is also the city attorney for Parkland, who we've also renegotiated the contract with. So he's very familiar with the contracts. And Parkland's worked very close with Weston and city manager Don Decker. So Soroka is very familiar with the direction that BSO's gone with our new contracts. So I just want to tell you, I'm coming to the table in 2 weeks with a contract that is going to be very fair and as transparent as BSO can be. We're not trying to rip anybody off. We're not trying to do an aha, I gotcha. We're trying to be as transparent. We're trying to be good stewards. We're trying to be good partners. And again, we want this relationship to continue. So I hope I answered your question.
Is there an option of an extension to give the city time to consider what's going on? I've heard rumors. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm a little bit out of the loop. But has Pompano been? Had they gotten an extension? I heard they got a year-long extension.
So Pompano Beach, before their contract expired, they signed a 1-year extension. But Pompano also funded the first year of that salary study, of that 2-tier implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Pompano agreed and they funded that first year. All of our city partners funded that first year. Again, to include Deerfield Beach, they allocated the money for it. So yes, they signed a 1-year extension to facilitate their feasibility study. And again, I respect that. Do your feasibility study. You have to make the best fiduciary decision for your city in your positions, whether you're elected or you're the city manager. So that's where that's at. That's a 1-year extension. Deerfield Beach doesn't have that option because the contract now has ceased and we're in what they call actuals, which is a 2-year transition period where they're supposed to be going back to their own department unless we negotiate a new contract, and then the contract will get reinstated.
All right, thank you.
Hold on. One other thing on that, I think it's important to know what Pompano is doing. So Pompano hired 2 companies to do their study. One of them is the same that Deerfield Beach hired, the Center for Public Safety. The other one is called the Raftelis Group, and they're doing it together. And they have been having town hall meetings with their residents, and their study will not be available until March of 2026. City of Pompano paid $285,000 for that study. Deerfield Beach has promised that their study will be ready before the end of this year and Deerfield Beach laid out 72,500. So I just wanted to give you those facts. I'll get back to you, Charles, but somebody who hasn't asked a question yet.
All right, I got a question. So I know you said you presented 3 options at the time, at the city commission. The way it was laid out to us was, hey, this is our rules, don't like it, we cancel. So if that, I'm not sure if that's the way it came off, but that is the way that it would seem to, you know, everyone that was in the chamber that day. It was like 3 of them. I know the first one, if I remember correctly, when they brought it up was in April. And they was like, hey, yeah, it's just a formality, you know, we contracted at 5%, we can't go above that, because it's an additional so $1 million, or several million. Then it came back again when, I think, I'm not sure if it was the Herald or the Sentinel that hit the press, and then that's when everybody else started catching wind. What you're presenting now was, hey, there's 3 options here. Was that presented at the time when they sent the cancellation, or was this after the fact?
It was after the fact, so we sent the original consideration budget in May based on the salary study that was delivered to the city manager in April. The city manager rejected the consideration budget and asked us for a new consideration budget that accommodated the 5% cap. BSO tried to communicate with the city for 3 weeks to try to set a meeting so we could explain and go over this again and let them know this is where we're coming from, this is the why. But there was no communication permitted from the city back to BSO. And because of that 90-day requirement in our contract, we had to send that cancellation letter to meet the September 30th deadline, because come October 1st, with all of our other city partners, we had to implement the raises come October 1st. So it forced our hand to send that letter to Deerfield Beach so we can hit that 90-day ticker to implement those raises. Did I answer your question? It was after we got the letter back, and so after we sent the cancellation letter, we tried to get a meeting several times. It took us a long time to get a meeting with the city. And when we got that meeting with the city, that's when we brought those options ourselves.
Right, I understand that, but I guess the question that I'm trying to get more clarity on is, once the cancellation letter, I guess you guys had, you know, when your hands was forced, why not had, presented those options then, as opposed to see what the city was going to do? I mean, if I'm not correct, it was like a 6 months extension or something, and I could be wrong, I could be misspeaking about was it the contract that ends in March, or was it an extension?
The contract was slotted to end the end of March of 26.
Okay.
So by ending it early, they had time left on the contract. And we had to cancel the contract to meet the October 1st deadline to implement the raises. So if I understand your question is, why did we not give options along with the cancellation letter for them to take? Is that what you're asking me?
Prior. Because when I remember, and again, if my memory serves me correct, in April, it was like, hey, yeah, just, because I'm not sure which commissioner had asked the question, like, hey, what does our contract say? Is it contractually legal for them to do that? And the city manager at the time was like, no, this is what we contracted about. And the way, again, I hate to be misrepresenting people, but the way it was presented was, no, this is the contract, it'd be taken care of, or whatever the case is. But then prior to the cancellation letter, options weren't presented, correct? Like, it wasn't a thing that, hey, listen, we want our 10%, and that's it.
I understand what you're asking. The answer is no.
Okay.
The options were not presented prior to the cancellation letter. When we gave the salary study to the city manager in April, there were no concerns that were raised at that time. So when we set the consideration budget, we didn't know it was gonna be a problem, because again, this was a change order on a contract, and all of our other city partners were getting on board with it. So we didn't foresee there being the scale of an issue that this turned out to be. I didn't have that foresight. And when we sent the consideration letter out and he rejected it, again, for 3 weeks we tried to communicate with him, and that was that opportunity. We tried to do that, and we didn't get anything back. There was no response until we sent the cancellation letter. Once the cancellation letter went out, then we got a response. And that's when we tried to set meetings up. and it was difficult to get meetings with the city. We're working on it. I hope I answered the question.
And also, and that's why I had the colonel read that clause in the contract, that either side could cancel the contract upon 90 days written notice.
On your agenda, it says that you were going to discuss the cost for each resident.
Oh, yeah.
I spoke to Dan about that. That's not for me to, that's a city calculation that would have to be done. That's not for me to calculate that out.
However, you can, in a way, back into the increase amount, because the colonel has already told us that on the police side, we're talking now less than 1% if the city would agree to the proposals that were given. On the fire side, no, it would still be that 11% increase.
Is that in addition to the 5% that already knew they had?
No, on the police side, it can be as low as 0.9% versus what we paid,
That they were expecting a 5% increase.
correct.
So when you talk about a 1%, you're talking 6%.
Yes.
You're correct.
Exactly.
It's 6%. But again, that was a cut that I felt comfortable with doing. Again, I'm the contract provider. It's, the city is the one that should have told me, this is what we're willing to accept for staffing to get to that number. And I felt comfortable coming forward with, that was option 3, to get us to where we are within 1% of the contractual obligation. I could have cut lower.
That was for one, it's 2, it's fire 2.
Correct, but that accounted for both. Again, I stand for both services here. So I took in consideration, the fire didn't have any ability to cut. They don't have the staffing to cut without cutting actual services. And the cuts that I proposed in that option, again, did not impact public safety services.
Didn't you say there was going to be about a 3% increase on the fire side?
Over 6 months. I think it was 6 months.
It was, so over 6 months, yes ma'am. So the math gets hard to follow. Because I gave a consideration budget that was for 12 months. On the contract phase, they had 6 months left of their contract. So they're saying you're violating the contract because you're over 5%. Well, if you take the 6% for the year, but I'm really only tied to 6 months of a contractual obligation of that cap, it's 3%, not 6%. Within the confines of the contract, I hope that understands that. But I did my best to project out for the entire year. Again, I understand the city's not budgeting for 6 months. The city has to budget for the whole year. And I understand that. So when we did our best to, I hate using the word doge, but I did my best to doge the services on the law enforcement side to get as close to that cap as I could for both, for the total BSO contract for fire and police. And that's what I tried to work towards. And I didn't want to cut any lower. And I wanted to let you know, I backed up those cuts options by looking at the crime statistics. With the current vacancies, I said it, there's more vacancies this year than there were last year. But I looked at the crime statistics in the city. And with those vacancies there, crime still went down. Significant crime went down in the city for Part 1 crimes. So I felt comfortable being able to either freeze those positions for 6 months to save that money, or eliminate some positions to save that money, because I was not going to impact public safety. And where I was recommending to cut the positions were from, were not impacting calls for service, proactivity, investigations, or any revenue generating positions within the police department. So that's where I felt comfortable making those cuts. I could have made more cuts on that recommendation, but I'm trying to be a good partner, and really it's up to the city to tell me what they're comfortable with cutting. It's not for me to demand where the positions are or there aren't. They're the customer. Does that answer your question?
Colonel, is it not true that Rodney Brimwell, before he became the public safety director of the city of Deerfield Beach, was the captain or police chief in the city of Deerfield Beach for BSO?
Yes, sir.
Did he get terminated by Sheriff Tony?
No, sir.
What? Did he leave? Did he retire on his own free will?
Yes, sir.
And then he became the public safety director? Obviously, he left early.
I can't speak to when I believe he was in drop, again, I don't have the facts in front of me, but he retired in good standing, he retired on his own, and he accepted a job at the city as the public safety director.
He had another job to go to. As he became the public safety director, which Dan just informed us, he started a study from the Center of Public Safety on what it would take to go back to a police and fire in the city of Deerfield Beach.
I've only very recently learned of that fact.
It seems like this whole thing is not about numbers. This whole thing is not about who's in charge here and who's in charge there. There's animosity somewhere, somehow, for whatever reason, between our city manager currently and the sheriff. And they unfortunately can't get along, or they dislike each other. And unfortunately, those two people disliking each other, it's causing the residents of the city of Deerfield Beach to have to start a new police department with the city manager's blessing. You know, I'd like to know where this study came from and how much it cost. Did Dave Santucci, did the city commission vote for this study in 2024?
I can only tell you that I found out about it when the city hired the Center for Public Safety, is the first that I even heard, because they mentioned in the backup that it's only costing $72,500 because
They'd already
we
done
did
some.
we had done a lot of the work.
It sounds like the city commission, this whole idea came about with the contract. If the District 4 commissioner was here, I'd want to punch him in the mouth. Because the only thing he can say is, they broke the contract. They broke the contract. They broke the contract. There's a 5% escalator in the contract. I got hired in the city of Deerfield Beach in 1985. I was a firefighter here until 2019. Every year, the police chief in the city of Deerfield Beach, which was a captain, would come to the podium and he would say, it was 3% originally, way back when, 90s, until about 2000. The police chief would come to the podium and say, we need to up the budget for BSO by 3%. City commissioner would say, okay. And that was the end of it. There was no more. And then the fire department, unfortunately, we were on our own because the police were already the BSO, and we'd have to negotiate a contract with the city. And we were the big boys in town, and we got beat up because there was no more police contract. It was contracted by the Broward Sheriff's Office. That has been up to 5. We have salary problems. Obviously, we can see that with the numbers you gave us tonight, and those are disgusting. You know, hey, I'd be in Palm Beach County or I'd be driving to Boca Raton to get an application right now if I could, if I was a BSO deputy. But it seems like everybody in this city should know what kind of animosity there is between our city manager, Rodney Brimlow, and Sheriff Tony. I think Sheriff Tony was a little bit quick on the draw to cancel the contract or send a letter of cancellation. You know, I was the president of this union here in Deerfield Beach for almost 15 years and negotiated contracts, and we negotiated contracts until they were done, until both sides agreed. And you don't get much playroom in Florida because it's a right to work state. It's basically you go to the city and beg a little bit, and they give you a little bit, and you walk away happy. And you go back and explain it to the men, hey, we'll get a little bit more next time. Okay? And then, on top of that, the city is writing letters to the commission to read about Sheriff Tony taking away Rodney Brimlow's health insurance. We got the city commissioner trying to stand up for Rodney Brimlow. And because he lost his health insurance, why did he lose his health insurance? If he walked away happy and he walked away on his own, why did he lose his health insurance?
Because he gets it from Deerfield.
Well, I can answer that. The answer is that as part of his severance agreement, he could not basically badmouth the city of Deerfield Beach, and Sheriff Tony's office interpreted his filing of the complaint with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement as a violation of his severance package and gave the right to take away his health insurance, but not his pension. His pension is safe, but he violated the terms of his severance package.
And I asked you when we walked in the room today, at the previous city commission meeting, prior to Tuesday, the city commission ordered Rodney to come back and negotiate with you, and we had a commission meeting, we had 2 weeks, 3 weeks in between commission meetings. Did we have a negotiation session in there?
No,
The city wouldn't meet with you, would they? Rodney wouldn't meet with you.
it's scheduled for.
After the next commission meeting.
2 weeks from now.
After the next commission meeting. This whole project has nothing to do with Deerfield Beach needing to get away from BSO police and fire. This whole project here is a Rodney Brimlow concoction when he was let go for whatever reason from BSO and became the public safety director in the city of Deerfield Beach. He's had this going for years. He brought in a guy from North Carolina to be the police chief. Has no idea what's going on in South Florida, but he's here to be the police chief. I love the guy because he graduated from Bowling Green, the same college I did. But he's a North Carolina guy. He knows nothing. He has the numbers, but he won't tell anybody the numbers. They've got the numbers. They know how much it's going to cost. Hallandale, everybody, the colonel talked about Hallandale. Hallandale did a big study. Hallandale, the mayor in Hallandale hated that the fire department got voted by the commission to go to the county, BSO. She bitched and bitched and bitched for months. They finally did a study, and it came back that it was going to be like $2.5 million more to go back to your own. And she finally said, okay, you got me with the study. So hopefully the study in the city of Deerfield Beach will say the same thing, because this pissing match between the head of the city of Deerfield Beach and the head of BSO is not good for its residents. And it's not going to be any good for our pockets.
Can you
Because it's going to cost 10 times more.
Can you elaborate on the commissioner and maybe the mayor? You know, what role are they playing?
Well, let me go over here and, also, has anybody not asked a question yet before? Okay, so let me go to Roger.
Yes, good evening. I've been asked to find out when will BSO have another town hall that will include all the residents as opposed to a private one this evening? That's question number one. And based on the numbers that you just presented us with, including what the beach cops earn, which is $144,000 a year, how are we supposed to afford a police department when the average income of a Deerfield Beach resident is $57,000? A starting individual with the police department makes $64,400 in Deerfield Beach. So if I'm a 19-year-old and I'm not college or university material, and I go and I join the police department when I'm on the beat, I'm going to be earning $64,400. I mean, these numbers are outrageous. I mean, $91,000 in Boca, well, I'm sure they can afford it, but I'm just trying to figure out how Deerfield Beach residents who aren't on big pensions from other companies are supposed to be able to afford to pay for such an exorbitant and expensive venue. Thank you.
So if I can answer the question, BSO didn't make up these numbers. BSO's not setting these salaries. These are all independent counties, independent municipalities. That's just what the cost of public safety is in South Florida now. And BSO has a responsibility. We don't have to like the numbers, but these are the numbers. As an employer and director of law enforcement, this is what BSO has to pay to be competitive to provide public safety. I'm not setting the numbers, but these are the numbers. It was an independent salary study. I didn't make up these numbers.
No, that's fair.
Okay? But that's what we have to pay to be competitive, to bring people. And if Deerfield Beach went back to its own department, they're gonna have to pay these numbers, because that's the cost to provide public safety for fire and police. Whether you got a BSO patch on your arm, or whether it's gonna be a Deerfield patch on your arm. And I say this, Deerfield will have to be more competitive than a lot of these other cities to attract employees. Because you're gonna have to sell it. Deerfield Beach will be it's a 150-man law enforcement, and about 130 for fire rescue, 142, 146, so close.
Take 40% off.
That's not a big agency in the grand scheme of things. And when somebody's coming into an agency, my fear is that you're gonna turn into a training ground. You're gonna come in, you're gonna get some experience, and you're gonna leave. And you're gonna go to one of these bigger agencies where there's more opportunity, opportunity for growth, opportunity for advancement. So that's my fear for the city. And again, this city had problems. They went to BSO in 1990, and eventually the fire rescue came over. They came over for a reason, and those reasons are still there. If you go back to your city, you're just gonna recreate the same problems again. And I respect the city, and I respect the city's decision. Again, like I said, I'm not here to indict anybody. I'm not here to talk negatively about decisions that were made or back and forth. There's been a lot of fog in the middle. I've been trying to be clear. I've been trying to provide clarity and facts of what's what. I'm trying to really keep my opinion out of it. I can speak that I think BSO is the best public safety agency in the county. It is the best option for the city of Deerfield Beach.
Will there be another BSO town hall for the entire city, organized by BSO for residents to attend? I just need a yes or a no.
There is not one. I'm not saying yes or no, because that's a decision the sheriff has to make. Okay? If there's one, I assure you I'll be here. If the sheriff directs me to come, I'll be here. The sheriff might have another one for himself. So I know we plan to attend the city town halls that are coming up. We will have a presentation there. Hopefully we're afforded the opportunity to answer questions along with the questions to the city.
The city town halls that the city have organized, BSO will be present for those?
Yes?
I was under the understanding that was just for residents and for city management.
Would you not want BSO there?
If they bring contracts, yes. If
I'm
you're not
bringing
gonna
a
bring
contract.
contracts, I don't need to see 300 pages of legal mumbo jumbo. I'd like to know, I know from Chief Hofstein, we have 28 police officers working in Deerfield Beach every hour of every hour. So then if we have 28 of those fellas, do we have like a lieutenant, a chief, someone else? What would the total number of police people doing work in the city of Deerfield Beach, SWAT, task forces, drug enforcement, is it a 40 people per hour, 60 people per hour, 100 people per hour? Because based on these numbers, and you know what, people can come and tell me till they're blue in the face, we have so much police, this, that going on. In the few times that I've had to deal with the BSO in Deerfield Beach, 11 police officers showing up at a Chick-fil-A dinner during COVID when nothing was going on, we still paid the same money. I see two kids, 10, 11, 12 years old at the McDonald's, right at Martin Luther King in Hillsborough, having a little wrestling match. 6 police officers show up for a little minor incident. August 31st, between 3:30 and 4:30 in the afternoon at Aldi's, shoplifting occurred. I know the store manager there quite well. She says, Roger, I'll talk to you in a bit. I got to deal with the cops. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, shoplifting. 9 police officers showed up at that facility on Aldi's on Federal Highway. And when I left, a 10th was waiting for the people who stole the merchandise in their Aldi cart going to be going down the street. And the people were never apprehended.
So I just want to
I
make
mean,
sure.
I
don't
might
wanna
be
talk
bringing up
individual-
cases
I'm not going to
that-
talk individual cases.
I
can
don't,
tell you the
I'm
staffing
sorry I had to
alone.
bring it up, but you
It's
know,
okay.
when I see something like that, that's like me being a owner of Gimler Plumbing, and I need 3 toilets exchanged, and I send 12 plumbers there.
I understand
How
what you're
does that make
saying.
any sense, and how is it fiscally responsible?
Roger, let him answer.
So the allotment of staffing is based on a formula. There's not that many at all one time in the city of Deerfield Beach, okay? But we have to have those numbers there. It's almost like an insurance policy. I can't half-staff the city, and then you have an active shooter event, and then I don't have it. It's like having a staffing at the fire department. I can't not keep people at the fire department because there weren't any fires last week. I have to have the people there in the event something bad occurs. It's based on population, it's based on density. There's a lot of things that go into the formula for what the staffing is. Okay? You have road patrol services, investigative services, you have proactive services. They're all other ancillary that every police department has. So I'm not here to discuss why there were 9 cops at Aldi's on an incident for a shoplifter. I don't know the facts as to why that was. But I'll tell you this, I'm happy 9 cops decided to show up at a call and do something and not hide at the 7-Eleven drinking a soda. At least they tried to go there and assist how they could and be engaged with a call for service for the community. I would rather them doing that than not doing anything. So again, just there's two sides to every coin. And I understand your vision. I understand what you're saying. I get it.
Red Speed proved what's been going on in Deerfield for 21 years. They gave out 6,000 tickets in a short period of time. In the 21 years that I've lived here, I doubt the BSO has given out 6,000 tickets in the 21 years I've lived here for speeding, illegal U-turns. And you know what, the BSO should make a better example. They're blaming.
Roger, I'll tell you this, if I sat BSO Motors on Hillsborough Boulevard and wrote 6,000 tickets in a year, there would be an uproar like you've never seen of people getting pulled over and writing tickets. I promise you, it would be a citizen uproar if I sat there and wrote 6,000 people tickets in a year on Hillsborough Boulevard. That's something AI gets away with because people don't see it till later. They get a ticket in the mail, all right? That's how they get away with that. That's different. It's a different style of policing.
Well, you brought up some good points, really and truly.
Wait, hold on. Charles, hold on 1 second, because a couple of people haven't had a turn yet.
I just actually wanted to go back a few years about the staffing issue, because back when Sheriff Tony was running for office, retired Colonel Pollock was running as well. And we had multiple town halls at our community in Natura. And back then, he talked about being short-staffed, 200 deputies then. He also talked about the underpayment and how BSO used to have a waiting list of deputies, but now they all left and went to Palm Beach County. And frankly, to tell you the truth, you all put your lives on the line every day, and shame on us if we don't want to pay you what you're worth.
Thank you.
That is just not right. And you know what the city can do? As they shove down all the developers that are coming to our community and we don't get a say in it, and they're getting all of these dollars, those are the dollars that could go to pay your salary, not from the citizens. There's plenty of money in the budget, and those fees could be reallocated to pay deputies. We need them. And when you talk about being overstaffed, you know, we had a murder here at the MLK, near the McDonald's, where they had a murder there. We have a homeless issue. We have a lot of problems. We stood in line, we're driving in line at the McDonald's on MLK when a Looney Tunes is up in the front screaming at the girl who he was obviously on some kind of drug. Now, what are we supposed to do? Not have a police officer to answer that? All those employees were in danger. I want 10 people to show up. I've had multiple times, I run a property manager at Natura Senior Community, and multiple times we've had issues of residents that are seniors dragging a woman through the parking lot by her hair, kicking her in the ribs. I'm glad 5 deputies showed up because they needed to take care of that situation. And it's not just about that, it's about keeping the public out of harm's way. What if these people pull a gun? I mean, it's just ridiculous. I think having extra staffing is important.
You know, we're not getting to the point here. He made a beautiful comment. You're following right up. We're talking about leadership now. Yeah. Where is the leadership?
I promise I'll get to that, because it's not fair to the Colonel Robson to comment on that. I will get to that.
You know, wasting time.
I will get to that before we finish.
He's doing a terrific job. The city's
I
got to
understand.
capitulate.
I understand.
They're nasty, they're bad, and what we need is leadership.
We
I'd like
will-
to know who runs where's the who's in charge of the emergency headquarters? You know what I mean? Who makes the plans? Okay, we got crime in this area. We got this in that area. How many officers do we need? How are we going to disperse the group here and there? Who's making all the decisions is what I'd like to know.
Okay, all right.
They help these guys here answer their question.
How you doing? Thanks for your time. So my main question is, it didn't sound like there was really room for negotiation for any city, because it sounded like you were stating that it had to go across the board on all partner cities. So was there room to negotiate, and are all contracts coming up at the same time, where ours was only 6 months or so away versus other cities? I do, you know, construction all the time, not me physically, but, and I know all about change orders. The reality is though, it's not typically based on staffing. Your salary is your salary. It's based on, you know, you needed this different or that different, or if you wanted to add another 5 BSO people, then that would be a true change order. If we're talking apples for apples, that's not truly a change order. That's my only problem with this, is it occurred in the middle of an agreement that was basically at the end of it, as opposed to a couple months later. But to the community that is here, I have to say, because I've listened to many people in this room fight development, fight variances, things like that. As I've heard about a salary of a person, it's not just about average salary of a citizen in this municipality. It's about change and progress. And this city fights development. They act like a variance is a gift. And you turn a property that's a vacant parking lot into a multifamily residential unit that's gonna bring in $800,000, $900,000 a year in property taxes. There's other factors, but like I said.
You're losing me, you have a question?
The reality is, like I said, to fight for what you're saying, I agree you should be paid your fair wage. If a wage is fair, and across the board, but my only other problem is obviously you hired somebody to do this study. You know, if I'm doing work in my home, I'm gonna hire the contractor that gets done what I want them to get done. So, you know, it isn't necessarily an independent, while they have worked for the city in the past, it's not exactly an independent, you know, study on the salary side.
But the results were the results. The results were facts. It wasn't opinion based.
I know Chief Muccio well, you know, and I know you referenced Boca, so I was a little, you know, surprised to hear the starting salary in Boca. You know, so I'll give her a call tomorrow and talk about things, but I had an unfortunate incident, as many people in this room know. I've talked to Chief Muccio, told her that story. She said, I can guarantee you nobody in my force would have done what happened to you had happened to you. So maybe we do need to pay people more so there's training.
You asked me 2 questions. What did we force this on somebody, one, and what was the reaction to everybody else? Did we give everybody else options? Okay. Unfortunately, we're in a position of attrition and a lack of being able to accrue. I don't have options. I couldn't wait. And if you look at the organic construct of our contracts with our cities, it's a perpetual 5% cap. A municipal police department has the purview to give an 8% raise, a 7% raise, a 9% raise, and have those catch-up years. And if you look and do your research, you'll see that other municipalities that have their own departments do that. But when you have contractual services in perpetual, year after year after year, and you're 5% cap, 5% cap, 5%, you fall behind. And that's what's happened with us. And I gave you the numbers. We are behind, and we have to catch up. At some point, a line has to be drawn on the sand, and we have to catch up, which is why we forecasted we're doing a salary study. I'm not gonna say the city's name, but when I came to that city manager, the city manager said, we knew this was coming. We looked around, we know what everybody else is paying, we know what we've been paying. They know they've gotten a deal by underpaying what everybody else around them was paying for the same service. We knew this was coming, we put money aside, no problem, okay? So that was the reaction to one of our bigger contracts. We didn't get resistance from the other cities. Everybody understood the salary study at face value, because it's very transparent. It was independently done, and the need was there, and they appreciated, note that the city of Deerfield Beach appreciates the men and women that serve in this city for public safety. They appreciate it. They verbally expressed that multiple times on that dais. And I appreciate that. I appreciate them recognizing the people that work here and provide that service day in and day out, because I did it for 5 years here. So, I appreciate it. I appreciate every single person that works for the Broward Sheriff's Office, regardless of your role or capacity. I truly do. So at some point, the race has to get implemented. So we said, we're not doing it all at once. And that's why I said we broke it up over that 2-year implementation to reduce that sticker shock. But we have to get there because we're just not competitive. We're getting our butts kicked and we're losing people for it. And I don't want to become the training agency. We're the 4th largest public safety agency in the country. I can't afford to be the training ground and put my training efforts and my equipment and my resources for another agency to benefit from that employee that I've trained up to become a professional, for you now to get the benefit of all that training and effort that I put in, and I have to start over again. There's a big investment. Putting somebody through the academy, doing all that training, the resources that goes into training somebody to get them certified in law enforcement or fire rescue, to make them a viable personnel to serve in a capacity such as Deerfield Beach, for them to turn around and leave to another city, because that city doesn't pay that cost. But that's another fee that I hope in their feasibility study that they're considering. What is that training cost gonna be? And again, I say, this is a smaller agency. It will be a smaller department. It's gonna be a training department. You're gonna get people in the door, they're gonna get the experience, and they're going to leave.
I was just asking why it couldn't be in 6 months. That was all I was asking, why?
We try, because okay, you're right, the second part to your second question. Because, and I've worked on this, so Deerfield Beach, the contract I'd like to get signed is not a 5-year contract. It's gonna be a 4.5-year contract. Because I want to align all of our municipal partners for the contracts to expire at the same time. As an administrator, I want to negotiate the contracts once. I don't want to do one this year, and then the city manager sees that one and then tries to change the language, and now all of our contracts have Me Too clauses. So it's easier to negotiate the exhibits in the contract once and get everybody on board once and set that time schedule moving forward. And that's the plan. That's what we've done with all of our contracts. To now, moving forward, everybody will expire at the same time. It'll be September 30th or whatever that year is going to be at 5-year increments. So the contract we're speaking to is a 4.5-year contract for that reason. Did I answer your questions?
Yeah, but I was just saying why, in terms of the either the 2% or the 3% raise over the next 6 months starting October 1.
Because October 1 is the start of the fiscal year, and that's in everybody else's contracts with it. Deerfield's an anomaly, being that it's in the middle of the year. So I had to start it October 1st. And yes, they had 6 months left on their contract. And I acknowledge it was over the cap. It was over the terms of the contract. And you might not like the term of a change order. I like the term of a change order because when you have a perpetual contract year after year for a 35-year relationship, it is a change order. Because we're not ordering dishwashers and refrigerators, and I'm not ordering drywall. The construct of the contract is personnel. It is personnel, so it is a change order. It's a change order of what I need to do to pay my people.
I've twisted Colonel Robson's arm, and he'll stay around for a few more questions. And I will ask more questions, but I want to get to Howard's point just in case before more people have to leave. Like, what are the next steps? So I just wanted to talk a minute about that. Again, one of the reasons why I tried to time to have this meeting now is before the city had their 5 meetings. Because a lot of the questions that have been raised here, we need to ask our elected city officials and our city manager these questions. And in the forum that I think they're going to have, it will be very difficult for them to avoid answering these questions that have been brought up tonight. And so that really is the next step, to find out exactly the answers that we're looking for. And I think that'll hopefully be very enlightening, and then we can actually, the citizens can make a decision once we know a lot more information that we do not know at this time.
Dan,
So,
can I go first on that?
yes.
So I kind of started off as how'd we get here. Hopefully I painted that picture for you. How'd we get here? Where are we? Right? And the last part was where are we going? Right? Where are we going from here? Where we're going is, in my hopes, I bring forth the contract that we have a meeting in 2 weeks. And per the city commission's directive, they want that contract offered by December. So I'm hoping between BSO and the city, we'll get an amenable contract offer on the table. And the city has to compare that contract against their feasibility study and make a decision. And that's what the city's gonna do, what they said in December. They're gonna look at their feasibility study, and they're gonna look at BSO's contract. But my intent is to give you guys the facts of the true cost of what it's really gonna be, for whether it's BSO or your own department. It's, in my opinion, and I will say this is my opinion, It's not about money. It can't be about money, because you're gonna pay no matter what. If you want the value of safety and you want the value of service that you're getting from the Broward Sheriff's Office for police and fire, you're gonna have to equal that service and staff. You're gonna have to at least equal it. And the cost is the cost. I said that. This is the cost of public safety in South Florida now. You're gonna pay the same. You're gonna have to do some capital improvements. You're gonna have to build things. You're gonna have to buy capital. There's gonna be an upstart cost. It's gonna be more money. But that's the decision the city has to make. The city has to decide, is it in our best interest to recruit 300 public safety officials between fire and police, build out what we need to build out, and get everybody in place and take the reins in 22 months? If that's something they decide they want to do, that's their purview to do that. That's their responsibility to do that. I recommend against it. I think it's a terrible idea. But you guys voted them in and gave them the power to make the decisions for the community.
Let's not talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't show up.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day.
Oh, yeah.
But they have employed a city manager, but that's the way our society works. That's the way our society works. And they have to own the decisions they make. They're sitting on the dais, and there's responsibility with decisions they make. I'm looking at you. I'm coming forth with good faith. I'm giving the best fair opportunity to continue the service with the Broward Sheriff's Office. I think that's the best option. I hope they agree when they do their fiduciary responsibility and they look at their feasibility study and they decide the best option is to stay with the city of Deerfield Beach. And they put the citizens first. And they cut the politics out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who likes who.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. Don't like me. That's okay. I've been called a million names over my career. And that's okay. But I'm still gonna serve you because that's why I'm here. That's why everybody in the uniform is here. We take this job because that's what we want to do. I could have done other things. Everybody in uniform could have chose other professions. This is what we chose to do. You gotta cut the politics out. And I hope they make the decision that's best for the community and the best for the city moving forward. That's what's important. And I'm looking at you and I'm telling you, I'm coming with the best option for the city. But it's their decision to take it or not.
Okay, a few more questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, you touched on it a minute ago, as far as capital improvements, if the city takes the fire department back, because I think it was 2011 or 12 that they gave it over for a reason, to BSO, obviously.
Save money.
It will save money costs, but I believe only 2 of the fire stations are actually like up to code, up to hurricane proof, all that stuff. The city takes it back, the city's on hook for all that, right? There's nothing in the budget with BSO to do any updating on any of that.
No.
So that, you touched on it, so you kind of answered my question already. I don't know how much they're gonna save, but.
Well, just to bring everybody up to date, a couple commission meetings ago, the District 1 Commissioner floated the idea of having a $100 million bond offering to replace those fire stations and the police station. So that was brought up. I don't know if it will be brought up again. I assume it will be, but we're not quite sure where that stands right now.
Don't you think that was like a real low ball?
I don't even want to venture a guess at. Any more questions? Yes, hold
I don't
on.
need the mic. Just real quick, when is the meeting with the commission? The next one?
Oh, the next commission meeting, they just had one Tuesday night, which was, the first one, there's 2 next Thursday, the 13th, and they're at the Powerline Road Community Center. And Saturday, they're having 1 meeting at City Hall. And then Monday, there'll be a 11 a.m. and a 7 p.m. meeting at the Tigner Center.
It's on their website.
Right, it's all there, but those are the 5 meetings that they have scheduled. And then the next commission meeting is November 18th. Right, and then the meeting between the city manager and BSO is scheduled for November 19th, if I have my dates right. Okay. Any final questions? Well, listen, I want to thank everybody again for showing up. I really appreciate it. I think we all learned an awful lot tonight. And my appreciation to Colonel Robson, who gave up his time to come and educate us. And I'm very, very gratitude for you in bringing some of your friends with you as well. And we appreciate that so much. And we hope we can do this again. Thank you again.
Glad to know you'll be at those city meetings. I'm glad to know you'll be at the city meeting. Keep honest people honest.